Hey guys, and welcome back. Today's three projects are going to be based all around your kitchen. These are functional and they look nice. We've got a coffee mug tree, we have a recipe book holder, and we're going to have a fruit crate. So stick around, I'll show you how I make them. But first, take a second, hit that subscribe button, and I'll keep making more videos just like this for you. The first project is going to be the recipe book holder, and I'm going to use these two pine shelving board cutoffs. These are about 11 inch by 11 inch. This one's a little longer. And I'm just going to mark out a design that I like. I don't have a bandsaw, so I'm going to use a jigsaw. I'll take a lot of time on the first one, making sure it looks nice, and then I'll use a flush trim router bit to match for the second one. Now, I'm not very artistic, but with the help of a straight edge, I think I can come up with a design here that'll work. I want a little bit of a lean for the book. I need a space at the bottom for the width of the book, and of course I need a little lip on the end so that the book does not slide off. I'm going to use my smallest piece here first, that way I know I have enough material on the bigger piece. Now I'm just going to take my jigsaw and try to do a nice clean job on this one here. I'll tighten everything up with the sander after and use it as my template. There, that doesn't look too bad. And as you can see, I used my sander and rounded off all the edges here. Took my time on that because since I'm going to use my flush trim bit, it's going to follow this contour for the next one. And that's going to save me a little sanding on the second piece. Now I'm just going to trace my first piece and get my router all set up. Now when I'm cutting this one out, I'm going to stay on the outside of the line a little bit more just to make sure I don't make a mistake, because my flush trim bit's going to clean it all up after anyway. To attach the two pieces together so I can flush trim them out, I'm going to use a combination of masking tape and CA glue. Here we go. We've got two pretty much identical pieces here. I just got to sand and touch up the tight corners the router bit wouldn't quite get in. And then I'm ready to lay it out and see where I want it to overlap. I'm going to use half lap so that these can interlock and stay nice and secure. So I'm just going to kind of lay them out to an angle that I think looks nice. And I'm going to mark one spot on the back piece. That'll give me a spot. Then I'll measure down the width of the board, which is 3/4 in this case. And then I'll mimic it on the other side as well. I've got my first half lap marked out. And I'm just going to creep up to the lines a little bit at a time and keep dry fitting this. You want a half lap to be nice and tight. That's just going to make everything a lot sturdier. With your first half lap done, now you can dry fit your second piece in and make a mark where you're going to do your next notch. And what I like to do is eyeball it, get as close as I could, because what you actually want to do to make sure this is even is make sure you have the same length here as you do here. So I've set up my square for the first one, and I'll just match the next one. And once I have that, I can make my marks. Now that you got both pieces done and they fit nice and snug, just give everything a nice sand and a coat of stain of your choice. Now you have a finished cookbook holder. It looks great. There's only one thing that can make it look just a little better. There we go. Now, I don't know the technical name for this next piece, but I call it a fruit crate because it looks like a crate and holds fruit. So it makes sense to me. For this, I'm going to be using leftover pieces of pine shelving I have in my shop, but you can go out and buy a full piece. It'll do the whole project and it's relatively inexpensive. So the first thing I need to do is make multiple 1.5 inch wide slats for this. I need 7 of them at 12 inches long and 4 of them at 8 inches long. So I'm going to head over to the table saw and get those ripped down. You're also going to need 4 legs for this. They need to be 6 inches long. And since my stock is 3/4 inch thick, I'm just going to make 3/4 inch by 3/4 inch legs. It's also a good opportunity to use up any leftover pieces you had from ripping down your 1.5 inch wide pieces. So you got all your pieces cut and you're almost ready for assembly. To assemble these, I'm just going to be using a pin nailer and some glue. But before I start assembling, I'm going to sand each piece quickly. It's going to be a lot easier than when it's all put together. I'm just going to use a little bit of glue and a pin nailer. And make sure that your short pieces go inside your long pieces. That's because one of these, you're going to have to put slats on the bottom, so you need a spot to nail to. Now that you got your 2 rectangles made, you're going to finish the bottom of one of them. You're going to need to put your legs in first to make sure you leave enough room. Now with your 2 pieces assembled, you're ready to put the legs on. Now I want the legs to stay recessed about 3/4 inch. This is so I can make 2 of these and stack them if I want. So I'm going to grab a piece of scrap 3/4 inch shelving and use that to set my leg on. Now before I put the second piece on, I want to create a gap similar to this here. So I'm going to grab another 3/4 inch scrap piece and use it as a spacer before I assemble it. And since this will be in contact with food, I'm going to use a food safe mineral oil, in this case walrus oil. Now I most certainly saw something shiny and got distracted because I forgot to fill my nail holes, but I highly suggest that you do that before you add your oil. Once the oil's all dry, just give it a quick polish and then I'm all done. Now the reason I wanted to keep these legs recessed a bit here is so you can make 2 crates. Now you can stack them. And now you have a crate full of fruit, aka a fruit crate. For the coffee mug tree, I will be using a small piece of maple and a small piece of walnut. These 2 should give a nice contrast and give a real nice look. So the first thing I'm going to work on is the base. So let's head over to the table saw. For the base, I'm just going to cut out 2 squares, one at 6 inches by 6 inches and one at 5 inches by 5 inches. They're going to stack on top of each other and just give it a nice little step up look. And once I get them cut out, I'm going to take my hand router and just round over the edges to give it a nice little soft feel. I'm going to sand both pieces before I assemble just to make it a little easier. And then I'm just going to wad a bunch of glue on and clamp it all together and let it set. For the walnut piece, we'll call it the trunk of the mug tree. I'm just going to rip it down to 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches and give it a sand before I get ready to make the holes for the dowels. And for the dowels, I'm gonna have to make a jig. The jig needs to have one side that is the same width as the trunk. So I took a 2x4 here, which is 1.5 inches wide, and ripped it down. Then I take my 3/8 bit, or whatever size dowel you're going to use, and drill out the center of it. Then I'm going to head over to my miter saw and put a 22.5-degree angle on one end of the block. Then I'm going to shorten the block up. The trick here is to have it short enough that your drill bit comes through to the other side, but not so short that the drill bit's going to go all the way through your trunk. Then I'm going to take my time and mark out where I want my dowels. And I'm going to alternate sides here so that on one side I've got a dowel up high, the next I've got one low, and repeat that for the other two sides. Then I clamp my jig to my trunk and start drilling the holes for the dowels. And since you measured your block and you know that your bit's not going to go all the way through, you can keep just drilling until the drill hits that block and you're going to get the same depth on every single one without going through. I set up a stop block so I can cut all 4 of my dowels the exact same size, and then once they're cut I try to find them so I can glue them in. I'm going to use a dowel to secure it to the base as well. That's just going to give it some extra strength. I mean, I've seen some of those mugs out there you can get now, and they're just massive. Overkill. But if that's what you want, you gotta have a mug tree to hold up to it. So let's make it strong. I put it in the clamps to let it dry. And quite frankly, I got a little bored, so I decided to go and make a little hat for the tree. Kind of matches the base. Thought it might be a nice little contrast, so I'm using the same maple. Then I just glue that on top and clamp that as well. Once it's dry, I just do a little sanding touch up around the dowels and anywhere there might have been a little glue squeeze out, and add my clear coat to really make it shine. And just like that, you've made your very own coffee mug tree, able to withstand the heaviest of mugs. Well, there you have it. 3 easy but beautiful pieces for your kitchen. If you like this video, please take a second, hit that subscribe button. It really goes a long way and helps me keep making more content just like this for you. Till next time.